More? More? Really? You lot sure make sure you get your money's worth. I've had herpes that's cleared up quicker. But I know what you mean. It is rough out there. The only place I know where they tried to get rid of the prostitutes because they were raising the tone of the area. Okay, I'll do one more. But you'll have to pay for my taxi. It's been outside for half an hour. Poor sod, they've probably had his wheels by now. But in all seriousness, you've been a lovely audience. Well, as lovely as you can get for Sunday evening in Wolverhampton. Thank you all for coming. As I'm sure you've heard many times before, but usually said with a sense of relief that it's finally over, rather than because you enjoyed it. It lasted a long time. This is the last song. The words won't mean much to most of you, especially not you, sir. It's called Hey Big Spender. The minute you walked in the joint, I could see you were a man of distinction, a real big spender, good looking, so refined. Say, wouldn't you like to know what's going on in my mind? Oh, let me get right to the point. I don't my cock for every man I see. Hey, big spender, spend a little time with me. Okay, that really is it. Yeah, thank you. That's it, Wolverhampton. I hope to see you all again soon. Preferably somewhere far more glamorous than here. Bask in the applause. Savour every last drop, like the dying flourishes of a symphony. Don't do anything until the final notes have faded and the orchestra's fucked off. God, they are desperate. Thank God for wigs. And short-sighted audiences too vain to wear glasses. Tell me, Christina, how did you manage to pull off the magnificent trick of convincing an entire audience you're somebody else entirely? It was easy. They're too blind to realise. All I had to do is remember not to fall off the stage and walk amongst them. A close-up would shatter the illusion. And that's what this is, an illusion. Put on for an audience that lap it up without question. Oh, see what I mean? What do they think I am? The drag act? A taste of the exotic for an audience of onlookers? Or the cheap end of peer show? 5 pints and a bag of chips on the way home. I'm like their mistress. A menage a trois hundreds of times over. A dirty secret shared between all of us. And they're not faithful. Huh? They go off, see other people. They come here and see other people. Different lovers in the same bed. You won't get better than me. You should know that. I'm an original. All the young ones that come here are just imitations. They've seen it on TV and they copy it just so they can get onto Drag Race. I haven't got the heart to tell them it's not going to happen. No. This is where your careers are going to stay. 100-seater theatres above pubs. Cabaret tables to make it look fuller than it is. If you can't take it, quit. Because I don't need the competition. I don't need you looking at me as if you know something I don't, as if the reason I'm still here is because I did it wrong. I didn't. So I don't think you've got the something I never had that's going to make you the star I never was. There's no fast track to fame. There's hardly a slow track either. You have to have put in the hours. You have to have had the pain and the suffering. Not just copy the lines and pretend. Well, you can do that, and they do, and they'll still turn up. Yeah, the loyal and the lonely, and all the others, the hoi polloi, looking for something a bit risqué that they can still run home and tell their mothers about. I do wonder sometimes, why are they here? The Hindus, blokes out with their mates, or their girlfriends, yeah, their girlfriends, trying to act all metrosexual, prove their credentials. Look at the drag act, love. Look at me laughing at him, showing you I'm comfortable with my sexuality. Then let me take you home and roger your senses like he, she, whatever it is, never could. It's not a dignified way to live your life. Oh. You look like an accident in a makeup factory. Like you cleared out the closing down sale in a charity shop and you're wearing it all because you didn't have any money left to buy a bag. Little Blanche, the tragic heroine, depending on the kindness of strangers, dressing up, dancing, entertaining and whoring herself out just so they'll be there every night. I'm getting too old for this. I mean, who wants an ageing whore? No one. Unless you've got a fetish for old boilers. Or because they know you're desperate and you'll do anything they ask. I mean, they don't even get dressed up nowadays. Like they don't think they need to make an effort. I have. Put on my finest so I'll give them a taste of the glamour that's severely lacking in their own lives. I'm the queen that came down the cobbles. Bet Lynch, Elsie Tanner, and all the other ones they had in Corrie when it was actually good, all rolled into one. Just stick me in the Rovers, that'll boost their ratings. Throw me on the stage, a couple of songs, some saucy jokes. It's cabaret gold, and I'll sing the songs, not lip sync them like they do. You don't know what the words mean unless you're belting them out like you've lived them. You are a bitter old queen. Maybe, but I'm right. It wasn't always like this. I mean, it was always these venues or places like them, but there weren't so many of them. They were small, pokey clubs. No posters on the outside, nothing to tell you what went on inside. It was our world. Outsiders on the inside. A little piece of mystery that their sort stayed away from. Because they wouldn't wait outside to throw insults in case their mate saw them and thought they were queer. They'd wait down the road, so. Yeah. I used to have to carry all my gear in a bag. I couldn't be seen on the streets with it. I mean, nowadays, I could walk around all day like this some places and no one would bat an eyelid. That's not the point. Lady Christina does not walk down these streets. She's there to be looked at. She lives on the stage and makes occasional appearances in a pokey flat in preparation for her next performance. Between here and there, she doesn't exist. I mean, that's the other thing these kids don't realise. It's not 24/7. There is a line, the character, the person behind her. like Jekyll and Hyde. Lady Christina is the fine lady with the flamboyant clothes and makeup. And Chris is the sad, boring git who comes out whenever she's not there. The one who deserved to die because he's too puritanical to live. The one who could eat a meal that was shit. Actually a shit. And still tell the waiter, oh, that was lovely, when he came over and asked if he liked it. The one who babysit little monsters that should have been put down at birth and still tell the parents they were no trouble at all when they got back 2 hours later than they were meant to. Yeah, that's Chris. The birthday boy with what, 1, 2, 3, 4 cards to show for it. And one of them's from Auntie Claire, so that doesn't count. Auntie Claire, and oh, Uncle Frank. Huh. Family portrait. You go there, Uncle Frank. Always wrinkle situations to fall to and can't just £1.29. Really pushed the boat out. Shame it's a small one. Kid's bloody dinghy, perhaps. It's a big one. Fantastic birthday wishes from Baby Sean. That's enough, that's enough. Still 21, my arse. Happy birthday. All the 4s, 44. Yeah, thanks for the reminder. You don't look your age. I should hope not. Not after all the money I've spent. Like King Canute trying to turn back the tide. Or Leonardo DiCaprio drowning on the Titanic. Near, far, wherever you are, I believe that the Botox goes on. Maybe I'm getting too old for this. Maybe it is a young man's game. Maybe I should just give up. Go back to being me. If I knew me was. It's the trouble, I've been doing this for so long, I don't know where you end and I begin. Maybe it's time to find out. The star is leaving the building, then nobody is emerging. Christopher Laneghan. Shit. Always worried this was going to happen. But one day, when I stripped all this off, I was going to find you underneath it. And there you are. Father. Just like you were when I last saw you. 17 years. 20 since we last spoke. No birthday card from you. Do you even remember the date? Is there a little note on your calendar? You could find me, you know, if you wanted to. Down the road this evening. Back home almost. Those are the ways to find people. Not that you'd come here. But you've got technology. You've got Facebook. There's surprise, surprise. There's Auntie Claire. I mean, all you have to do is ask. How do you leave things for that long? When I was a kid, you used to drive past Gran's old place just to find out what they've done with it. Have you ever tried to find out what I've done with me? No. It's definitely started. Bags under the eyes. Although you're not quite there yet. But what can I do? Leave the makeup on? Remain Lady Christina, the genie that came out the bottle? I could do. And you hate her. But she's the love of my life. The one who's been there for me at my worst times. The one who's given me my best times. The one I hide behind. Well, hid behind. I don't even know what she is now. You know, I don't even know if I like her so much anymore. I should give her up. You know? Hang up the wig, put the makeup back in a box, try a new character, reinvent myself. But they wouldn't let me. They love Christina too much. She's like Poirot. Yeah. Agatha Christie hated him, but they never let her kill him. Had to keep writing him no matter what. And I guess I need her. She's a safe pair of tights I sometimes put on. Can't live. Living is without her. I can't live if living is without you. I can't give anymore. I can't live. I can't do Mariah. Don't think she can anymore. Not her age. Can't belt them out like she used to. Nope. On the slippery slope down to join Cher and Madonna, but without the auto-tune to help her. I love you, Mariah, but it's a lost cause, dear. Admit it. If I can turn back time. You can't. No. Same for me. I've got two choices. Mariah or Amy. That's no choice at all, is it? I've got to get old with her. Lady Christina, my alter ego. That's another thing you couldn't understand. She didn't have an alter ego. One dimension's more than enough for you. 2 or 3's just greedy. God. Subtext. Just fancy shit for intellectuals who don't know what they're talking about. Was it Christina you had the issue with? Would you prefer if I'd killed her off? Or never let her be born? Or was Chris the problem? Beware of mirrors, because the person looking back at you might just be yourself and you've never realised. No. This face is not destiny calling me. It's just unfortunate. And there's a certain irony about it. You, or someone who looks just like you, on stage every night in the Limelight Club, the Shangri-La, all those places where no straight man would ever be seen, where the mere thought of your son gracing the stage was enough for you to cut all ties, cast me aside, like I never existed. Should have expected it. I mean, it wasn't as if you ever gave me anything to suggest that you loved me. Not really. No. Hugs. Whenever I fell over. No kind words. Every time I got hit at school and came back crying. Hit 'em back. Hit 'em harder. That was all you could say. That's what I used to do when I was at school. They never hit me again. Good for you. Doesn't quite work like that for all of us. Not when there's half a class of them. And everyone else is too afraid to say anything in case they start on them too. You know, I didn't expect a red carpet, flowers or a coming out party. Just silence, maybe. Like it was every other time you said something. Someone said something you didn't like. But no, not this time. In the look of disgust, your face, a rainbow of unpleasant colours, angry, silent, disapproving, disbelieving. You can say so much with one small gesture. Roger Moore knew that. The name's Bond. He stopped at an eyebrow. Never realised his full potential. I bet Roger's dad supported him when he said he wanted to be an actor. I bet Roger's dad never said he was bringing shame to the family name. I mean, like we had a name to be proud of. You were second generation Irish when Birmingham hadn't forgotten the pub bombings and the middle class hadn't discovered Guinness. Every day, another day, where someone would call you a Mick or a Paddy and make some clever joke about how stupid the Irish were. And how did you deal with it? Deflect the humour. Pick someone else to laugh at. The blacks, the Asians, the Indians and the queers. Mum couldn't do that. Not after I was born. They all knew. You've married an Irishman. You've had a terrorist's baby. Even if you weren't a terrorist, or even Irish as far as you were concerned, but your parents were, and that was all that mattered to them. That's why the congratulations weren't as warm as they could have been when she told them. And why we didn't get the same cards and flowers as everyone else got. And the ones we did get, well, they weren't as good as they could have been. It wasn't fair on her. And I know it wasn't fair on you too, but you did not suffer like she did, and you certainly didn't do anything to make it better. You told jokes until you believed them, and you worked every hour you could because you thought that was all that matters. If you work hard and impress them at the top, you'll get on. And we'll never see you. I set an example. You did, yes. You did. But not the right one. Maybe that's why I grew up the way I did. And where did it get you in the end? Nowhere. They still got rid of you, the same as they did everyone else when the factories shut down. And when you got another job, you were right back at the bottom, with no one looking out for you. No bosses queuing up to take you back. They didn't need you anymore. And I brought shame on your name because I dressed up. You were gay. Dressing up was just an aggravated offence. The real crime was being gay. Flaunting it just made it worse. Should have known. Spent years trying to avoid detection. Getting the coach to Manchester every weekend. Searching out the little bars around the station where I could go and have a drink. And I could mix with fellow offenders. And we could indulge in our villainy, safe in the knowledge that the straight people wouldn't go in case they caught something. Except it wasn't like that. It wasn't like the last days of Sodom, or whoever you thought it was. It was just people going out, having drinks, meeting other people, and yeah, sometimes a little bit more. But nothing you wouldn't see in any of the pubs around here most nights of the week. It was the first time in my life I didn't have to hide and pretend to be someone that I wasn't. Or no one at all. I didn't have to be invisible. And I did try the bars around here, except they weren't as good. Plus I was worried in case you or someone you knew saw me as I left and you found out. I was worried about what you'd think of me. Actually, no. I was more worried about causing a scene, about other people knowing. That's what it was like for most of us. Back then, being made to feel like we had some sort of guilty secret. When all we had was the truth about who we were. I mean, we were made to feel like freaks. Like there wasn't a single person out there who wasn't exactly the same as us. It was just, Clause 28, save us from the sinners. There's only one way, and it's our way. Mr. Statham was the only one who ever tried to help me. And look where that got him. Sacked for being gay. Except he wasn't gay. He was straight. And married. And not in the Elton and Renata way. But he tried to help me. Just like he'd helped others. I wonder if he would have done it. If he knew what was going to happen to him. Someone told a parent. Who told the headmaster? Who told the governors? And that was it. Suspended, fed to the wolves. And he left, you know. He wasn't actually sacked. Not that it made any difference. I mean, it was only a matter of time. They were never going to let him back. I'll be the first one at the gates of that school if they let him teach that filth again. You'd have had to run quick. Be a whole angry mob trying to beat you there, just like there is now. Yeah, tolerance is going out of fashion. You never knew he'd spoken to me. You never knew what I was going through, and you never thought to ask. It wasn't just about sexual orientation. It was about what I wanted to do, who I wanted to be. Ever since I'd wanted to be anything, I'd wanted to be a teacher. But after what they did to him, if he was straight, and they could do that to him, I mean, what they do to me? Probably nothing. Probably. Because they would have kept it hidden. Yeah? Lied and, pretended to be straight. But then Christina never would have appeared. I couldn't have taken the risk. Imagine the scandal and the horror if I had done. Young teacher is pantomime dame. They'd never let their kids join the drama class if that got out. I gave up on what I wanted to be. Changed my mind about going to university and you never asked me why. Just said, if the lad's happy, that's all that matters. Except I wasn't happy. So I changed my mind about going to university. I was confused. I was lost. That's why I didn't want to just rush into a job straight after school. Do you know what? I was depressed. But you never asked me what was the matter. Just said I had to get a job. And not sponge off me and your mother. You're not using this home as a doss house. And you never even would have known if it hadn't been for that evening. Last day of April. Injured people. Worrying about how they were going to tell their parents the reason they were there, rather than how they could tell them they'd been blinded or lost an arm. Tell your parents you're a murderer or a drug addict, but never a queer. At least that way they'll think there's a chance you'll have kids. That's what told me. It wasn't right. We shouldn't be ashamed. We shouldn't have to hide it. It shouldn't be the thing that's discovered that makes bad news worse. But it's easier to think it than to say it. The courage it took for me to tell you. The time it took before I could do it. And then the lack of time it took for you to throw me out. Shut the door. Just refused to discuss it on the phone. Just repeat what you'd said and add to it, and for what? Because you and your mates thought it was wrong. Because you knew all the comments they used to make every time one of them came on the TV, and you didn't want them saying that about your son. That's not shame. That's just not wanting to be laughed at. I mean, did you hear that tonight? When I came off that stage, that was the sound of people who had a good time, thanking the person that provided it. That was the sound of love. Even if I don't like half of them anymore, because you should see them. The ones that come to the shows nowadays, I mean, half of them are straight. Not as straight as you. Not so straight it's a jacket. But they're straight. Married, most of them. But they come along. They aren't embarrassed or ashamed. That's because you're not their son. Drag queens and porn stars. All right to look at, as long as it's not a relative. It's an affront against man. It's an affront against me. What an ego. The gods didn't know you existed, let alone hate you enough to inflict all that damage. You did that to yourself, thinking everyone was against you, everyone was out to harm you. You never got. They just wanted to enjoy themselves. Why can't I see Mum's face? Why can't she be looking back at me? You think I never saw her again, don't you? You don't know about the furtive meetings? Her sneaking out, too scared to defy you to your face, too loving of me not to do it behind your back? Your mother was soft. Soft. She didn't like what you were doing any more than I did. She just didn't say anything. It's not true. It's just what she told you. To keep the peace. That's all. We met all the time at first. Lunchtime meetings, far away from home, like an illicit affair, you know. Somewhere no one would see us. She liked it. Even if she did always have to rush back to be home before you'd suspect. And she thought about leaving you. Yeah? You don't know that, but she did. You weren't the man she married. You weren't the person she fell in love with. You weren't the person she wanted to be with. She'd finally realised. And then she stopped coming. Wonder what was going on at first. I imagined all sorts. She wasn't well. She was well, but she was busy. She was looking for somewhere to live and start a new life. She'd already moved and started a new life. She'd met a mystery lover. Yeah. And in the giddy excitement of a whirlwind romance, she'd forgotten to pack her address book. Imagine so many things. I never would have guessed what it was. Till Auntie told me. It was cancer. She didn't want to tell me because she knew I'd visit and you'd cause a scene. I used to have to wait outside the hospital till you were gone. Charm the nurses to let me in outside of visiting hours. Just months of treatment and... She used to ask me to put her makeup on. You know, make her look healthy, defiant, taking on the world, not getting eaten away by it. The only thing I ever did that made you happy, and you didn't even know. It was me. And she told me about you. Said you'd been good, better than good. Brilliant, actually. looking after her, never letting on that you knew she wasn't going to get through it, always making her feel like she had a chance. I think she almost loved you again. And she said, you never mentioned me. And she never tried to get you to. She didn't want to upset you when you were being so nice. And she told me not to hate you. She said it wasn't your fault. It was the way you were brought up. I don't know. That's an easy excuse, isn't it? Plus, I was never as good as her when it came to forgiveness. I got that from you. She used to tell me stories. Well, she'd tell Christina. They used to chat, swap tales. She couldn't tell Chris. It was too personal to tell a child. But Christina was different. She was her mate. They want to talk shit at her for hours and stop her having to think about what was happening. And when they were chatting, they weren't in the hospital anymore. No, they were in the back garden, hanging up the washing, chatting over the fence. And it had nothing to do with you. It was about her. The girls she went to school with, the people down her road like Beryl Morgan, or fur coat and no knickers. Suzanne Jones had more lorry drivers than Pickfords. Karen Bradshaw, single-handedly keeping Mitchells and Butlers in business. I got to know those people. And I got to know her more than I ever had before. It probably made Christina. But it wasn't just that. Christina could talk to Joan. Christina had to talk to Joan. She had to keep up with her. She had to be sharp if she wanted to be Joan's friend. Yeah, she had to have her own gossip, her own scandals, like Helen Hutchins, the fishmonger's daughter, who loved a sailor with a big load. Brian Talbot, God's gift to women. If God shopped at the bargain stores in the Bullring. They were the people I remembered from school, the worst ones. The ones I had to reinvent and get my own back on by making them the ones that the cool kids laughed at. Because in Christina's class, cool kids were much smarter than they were in my school. Mum was my audience and my teacher, and she made me laugh. God, she made me laugh like I've never laughed before, like a plug had finally been pulled and everything could just flow for both of us. And she told me all about her hopes and her dreams, the things she'd wanted from life, like the 4 kids, the semi-detached overlooking the park. The feeling like she hadn't quite ended up how she'd started out. It wasn't much, but there's no point aiming for the stars you'll never catch. Just aim for the ones you might be able to reach with a bit of effort. She never managed to get them anyway. Sold her hopes to a man who promised her everything and delivered next to nothing. And she wasn't the only one. There are plenty of them round here. And by the time they realise it's a lie, it's too late. The ship's already sailed. And they're left on the dock, watching the tide go out. Or he pulls up the drawbridge just as they're getting on. She was 54. There's no age to die. Auntie told me. As soon as she heard from the hospital, soon as they told her to go over, I was never going to get there. You know when they've told you that. It's too late. They're already gone. Well, you should know. It's just an empty ward. A message left with the staff nurse telling me to go round to Auntie's. And I came to the funeral. Well, Christina did. She was there, stood at the back, dressed in her finest. She wouldn't usually go to funerals. It's not really her thing. But this was different. This was her best mate. She had to say goodbye. And you looked at her for a moment, as if you thought she looked familiar, but you couldn't quite place her. But she never went up to you, and she didn't go round to the house afterwards for sandwiches. Well, I've never felt as alone as I did in that moment. No, and I'd never get to see her again. I'd never get to hear her voice. No, and I only had one parent left, and he didn't want me. You didn't have to come to the shows. You didn't have to applaud. You just had to accept me for who I was, just like I'd accepted you, and you couldn't even do that. And I did used to wonder if I should call you, try and make friends, try and be there for you. But if you'd have wanted to chat, you would have called. You knew where to find me, who to ask, but you never did. And eventually, it didn't matter as much. Not to me. And it never mattered to Christina. You weren't her father. Her father was a music hall manager from a long line of entertainers, steeped in the traditions of show business, always on the verge of the big time. That wasn't until the funny business with the ventriloquist dummy on the pier at Great Yarmouth that led to all of their money disappearing and Christina having to leave the bright lights and work for a living. Her dad. He was someone I invented. Do your mates clap you on the back and cheer you on when you tell them you threw your drag queen son out? Or do they look at you and think, you daft old git, serves you right, you got no family, serves you right, you're miserable? Do they look at the cards you get on your birthday and wonder why there's nothing to the world's best dad, nothing with verses that might not be sincere? You probably don't even tell them you got a son. You told me you hadn't. You know, I pity you. I don't hate you. Because if I hate you, it means you're still dictating the terms. That I'm consumed in your world and the love of the audience is contaminated. It stops being love on its own terms and it starts being love as compensation for what you never gave me. And then we'd have something in common. We'd both be bearing grudges. We don't have anything in common. Anything we do share is buried beneath the makeup, too far from the surface to count for anything. Makeup. Just camouflage to hide what life's done to us. All make us who we are. I'm like a clown, in reverse, putting it on to become myself or bury me beneath the layers. Without the makeup, I'm like a little kid, trying to make sense of all the things that don't make sense to him. I'm a teenager, just shoved out into the world, not sure how to behave in it, or if they even belong in it. Without the makeup, I'm everything I was before Christina came into this world. I'm Chris. With all his doubts and his insecurities, his reluctance to open up and his inability just to talk about how he feels or just say who he is. But with the makeup, I'm someone else. I'm confident. I'm invincible. I'm funny. God, I'm funny. I say what I want, what most people are thinking but too polite to say. I say it, nothing holding back and no holds barred, and they love me for it. They love me for it. With the makeup, I become the person I was born to be. And that's so much more than the person you rejected. What do they say? You can choose your friends, but you can't choose your family. You said that. Said you'd never had kids if you knew you were having me. Well, here's news. I still would have come into this world even if I knew that you were going to be my dad. And I've got no intention of leaving it. It's not my birthday. It's someone else's. I'm someone conceived under fire in the mind of Christopher Laneghan. The man who went through a difficult pregnancy, gave me a disastrous entrance and really didn't know how to raise me or look after me for a few years, but credit where it's due. He stuck by me, sent me to the best schools, let me learn from my mistakes, let me become everything I am today. Well, everything I could be. Christina is me. A part of me. Not someone separate who's invaded my body. Not someone who exists for other people to say what she should be. And I'm not giving her up. I'm not making her what other people want her to be. She's my creation. I'm making her and Chris what what I want them to be. One person. All that I can be. Live with it. Mwah. You can see yourself out.